As a young man, I was always fascinated by the idea of serving in the military. I don't come from a family full of people who had served, making a military lifestyle very foreign to me. Growing up, my days were passed by playing with little green army men, fighting for the strategic location that was my bedroom. In my young age, I didn't know where this military influence was coming from. It was more than just a hobby, though, or an interest of mine. I knew military service was something I wanted to pursue as an adult. As I approached my teenage years, I remember visiting my grandparents in Texas and having one of the first adult conversations with my grandfather as we watched football on a Sunday afternoon. He started telling me about his time in the Air Force during the Korean War. During his time during the Korean War, he was stationed on a B-17 bomber. My grandfather flew countless combat sorties over North Korean occupied territory, executing missions while often being under very heavy fire. He told me of one mission that he was on, and he was sure he wouldn't return home. It was 1952, and he flew a mission over the northeastern portion of the peninsula. This is where his aircraft was met by both ground fire and enemy aircraft. As his plane finished their bombing run, 2 out of the 4 engines were shot out. They were over 100 nautical miles from friendly lines and were quickly losing altitude. My grandfather, being the navigator, was left with the task of getting their badly crippled aircraft home, which he did. Amazingly, the aircraft was able to travel back to friendly lines without anyone losing their lives. After my grandfather told me this story, he left the room for a moment. Before returning with a small wooden box, he handed me it, and he said, "Here, I want you to have this. I hope it keeps you as safe as it did for me during my adventures." I took the box from him and opened it to find his wings. These wings signify his role as an aircrew member. I didn't know how to react at that time, especially after hearing the story like that one. But on that day, something changed in me. I felt as though I knew what my future would hold. Fast forward about 8 years, I left home for basic training at the ripe age of 18. During a portion of my training, I found myself standing waist deep in a creek in Florida at night with a backpack that weighed more than most of you do. As I tried to crawl out of the creek, I was unable to get my footing. I grabbed for every last branch that I hoped was there, but would only pull grass. My bag was like someone pulling me back into the deep mud and cold water of the creek. My pulse began to race as panic crept into my head. In that moment, I remember what my grandfather had told me. The emotions he has felt as he was sure his plane was going down, and the fear that must have haunted him. I remember this and applied it to my own situation. If he could make it through that and go on to make our family and accomplish all the things that he could, at least I could do is climb out of this damn creek. And with that thought, I recovered some much needed energy and was finally able to emerge what I was sure would be my watery grave. Fast forward a year later, I deployed for my first time at the age of 19. A couple years after that, I would happen to find myself in Korea, the same place that my grandfather was 60 years earlier. Unfortunately, in 2013, my grandfather succumbed to his cancer after fighting for over 4 years and even beating it once. Even in his old age and diminished health, he is still a beacon of strength that I have carried through all the highs and all the lows that I have experienced in my life.